Hi, this is Katie with Empowering Astrology, and this is another weekly look at the astrology for this week. It's February 10th through 16th, 2020. So again, my name is Katie. My name is Katie Sweetman. I am an astrologer here in Brooklyn, New York. I'm also a psychic medium. So my work is called Empowering Astrology, and I created Empowering Astrology 10 years ago, which is hard to believe because at the time I wanted to talk about astrology in a certain way. And I didn't feel like that conversation was happening. So I decided to create it myself. And I often say that empowering astrology is astrology plus consciousness, this idea that the planets are sort of moving and shifting certain energies, but what do we choose? How do we work with that energy, and how do we transform? So that's always, let's say, at the core of what I share in my weekly videos. How do we best work with this astrology? This idea that yes, there are things that are out of our control. It's no different than, let's say, it's cold outside. Maybe you wear a coat, maybe you don't. That's up to you. But this week we are coming off of a Leo full moon. So that Leo full moon was February 9th for most people, except if you were on the west coast of the United States. It highlighted a lot of big themes around creativity, the self-expression, joy, passion. Leo is, let's say, ruled by the sun in astrology. So it's a gentle or maybe even bold reminder that we have to be ourselves. We have to shine ourselves. We have to be seen. In my links for the show, I do put a link to my full moon report. So make sure you watch it, or rather read it. But I did do a video last week where I talked about how the full moon was highlighting a certain part of our life. Something that I wrote in my full moon report was, a couple of years ago when we were having eclipses in Leo. I don't know if you remember, would have been about 2017, 2018. One of the messages that kept coming through from Spirit was about life's meant to be fun, it's meant to be joyous. And of course, there's things in our lives that maybe prevent that joy and that fun, but how do we prioritize fun? How do we prioritize joy and creativity? So hopefully, even though the full moon was yesterday as I record this, maybe you're still connecting with that energy. So be bold, reveal yourself, show yourself, prioritize your talents. But if you're watching live, or even if you're watching on the replay, whether on Facebook, Instagram, how was your Leo full moon? Did you do anything creative? Did you find that spark again? I did hear from a couple of people that some unexpected things were happening in their life. And if we go back to the new moon on January 24th, it was a point that I made at the time, that because that new moon was making what's called a square to Uranus and Taurus, that it was possible that there was going to be something over the course of the lunar month that was unexpected, little twists and turns. Maybe this is just a quick moment to talk about how new and full moons work. When we go into a new lunar month, it's going to happen in a certain sign of the zodiac, and often it's only in the sequential 12 zodiac signs. Sometimes you do get a new moon in one lunar month. That usually happens this time of year for scientific reasons that are going to take me on a tangent. But this full moon, like the new moon, it sort of creates an energetic experience, an energetic container based on the lens of the sign that it's in. So we knew that, let's say, for the new moon on January 24th, it was through the lens of Aquarius. Aquarius being this very collective-minded sign, a sign of humanity and friendships and social networks and science and even politics. This Aquarius being this big picture sign. So it was very much about our connection and our networks and looking towards the future with this new moon. So that kind of root energy gets seeded through our experiences. And then we have, say, certain planets that are connected to the new moon. Maybe it's the planet that's associated with the new moon, that sign that the new moon is in. Maybe it's certain planets making aspects. And you start to see how this energy gets a bit refined, or you add in these different elements. And that's how that's sort of the reality, the energetic reality that we are living through. And that new moon, and subsequently 2 weeks later, the full moon, is gonna interact with your sign, with your chart being this exact moment that you're born. It's like your cosmic DNA, and the new and the full moon are going to interact in a certain way. And that's how you can start to see your own reality and your own feelings, your own experiences start to unfold over the 4 weeks, which is the length of the lunar month. So, this full moon might have brought in some of that, what's called Uranian energy, insights, awakenings, breakthroughs, but also maybe some twists and turns, maybe something unexpected. So I just wanted to comment on that because I heard from a couple of clients about some things that were happening in their lives. That said, this week we have I don't want to say necessarily a quiet week. We don't have big aspects, but what we do have is we're in the run-up to Mercury Retrograde. So we have Mercury Retrograde on February 16th at 12 degrees of Pisces. That's Sunday here, at least where I am in New York City. That said, we might see kind of that Mercury retrograde in the shadow, getting ready over the coming weeks. So if you've watched previous videos, certainly we've had a couple of Mercury retrogrades at this point. I'm not one that gets really anxious about Mercury retrograde. That said, we need to do our due diligence. So what does that mean? This week, double check things, make sure you're getting the right information. There might be errors or confusion that's creeping into things because Mercury is the planet of communication. It's right now in the sign of Pisces, a sign that's more intuitive and dreaming and abstract and feeling than it is about, let's say, the cold, hard facts. So like I said, just make sure you're getting the right information. My general rule of thumb is that if money is on the line, meaning you are about to plug down a big chunk of change on something and you have the luxury to wait till after Mercury retrograde, then wait. I always this time of year get some kind of anxious comments. Oh my God, I took a new job, or I have to do this. And we have to live our lives. We have to be real. We have to be practical. But we also need to take consciousness of what Mercury retrograde is asking of us. It is a time when we need to take a second look at how we are communicating, the choices that we're making, our relationship with information and ideas and learning. We can't go forward into autopilot anymore. Every planet in the zodiac, in the solar system, except for the sun and the moon, turn retrograde. And of course, this is let's say an optical illusion from Earth. They aren't exactly going backwards in the sky, but it looks like they're going backwards. So every planet, except for the sun and the moon, has a phase where it has to pull back, reflect, turn inward. Now, life is about duality. It's about dark and light, yin and yang, forward, backwards, night and day. So this is a time when we kind of switch into a more receptive, passive, reflective energy. So Mercury, we know of it more because it turns retrograde 3 times a year, sometimes 4 times a year, depending on how it all links up. Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, Neptune, Pluto, they spend 5 months out of the year retrograde. So trust me, we're not losing sleep over those planets turn retrograde. I mean, they mean something for us. We are taking consciousness, we are bringing awareness to what those planets are asking of us during that time. I will add that there are 2 planets that turn retrograde the least, Mars and Venus, and they will turn retrograde in 2020, this year. Venus will turn retrograde in May. It is always retrograde 40 days, which seems highly symbolic. 40 days in the desert, this 40 days,